My name is Charlie Miller, and I'm here interviewing Alex Bonilla. Today's day is July 11th, and we are interviewing via Zoom. The first question I'm going to ask you is your date and place of birth.
December 18th, 1992, and it was Ecuador, Quito.
And what were the names of your parents? Did they have any military history, and what were their occupations?
So my dad was Omar Bonilla, just like me, and my mom is Nelly Bonilla. My mom is a kindergarten school teacher, and my dad was in the military in Ecuador. And then when he came over here, he's a computer scientist um, at a car software development center.
And what schooling did you have prior entering the military?
I had graduated high school, and
And
I had done one semester of community college
and when did you immigrate to the United States?
when I was 5.
Okay. Um, did you hold any jobs prior to entering the military?
I did. I worked at a shop in the mall, Hollister, and I worked at Starbucks.
And kind of what were your motivations to joining the service, and what were your parents' reactions to the news?
So my motivation for going into the service, that's a good one. So I would have classified myself as kind of smart in high school. However, I would get bored in school a lot, and high school just really wasn't me. I started doing things like hanging out more with my friends and putting more stock in that. And while I aced the SAT, I graduated high school with a 2.8. So yeah, there wasn't that many options for me. And being an immigrant, I didn't know just about like how to approach college very well. My parents were still had just gotten their degrees, and I didn't really feel like getting like loans pulled out and things like that. And the other part is I was a wild child, so I wanted to get out as soon as I could out of Texas, and I wanted to see the world. And the military was gave me the ticket, the easiest ticket. That my dad had been in there, and I guess like retrospectively as an adult now, I can say that there was a bit of me trying to prove myself to my father. And then the other part, he didn't want me to go in, and neither did my mom. My mom especially didn't, because my dad had been like threatening to send me to military school, like the entire time I was in high school. And then I ended up going to going to the military afterwards. So she was like, "Well, I should have just done that from the first place." So,
Where did you go to enlist, and what branch did you choose to serve in, and why?
so I went actually to my local recruitment office, and I actually went in to be a Marine because my two friends, my best friends at the time, were also going in and being Marines. So we thought we'd all join in together. And they took the ASVAB and they scored okay. I ended up scoring like 1 point shy of perfect on it. So when I came back, I was like, hey, so like, what kind of jobs? Like, I still want to do something, like I don't want to just really like, go camping as a job. And then they're like, well, we can make you a radio man and you'll be like in an infantry unit. And there was another guy that was like right next to me that I had known in high school who had barely like passed his classes. And I just remember it was just like not the brightest crayon in the book. And he was like signing up to be an infantry. And I was like, well, oof. And so I was outside in front of the Marine depot, and the Navy depot was right next to it. And there was a Navy guy smoking a cigarette, and we were just chit chatting. And he's like, well, like, do you want to program computers, or do you want to learn how to like be like a nuclear engineer? And I was like, yeah, that sounds doable, because he heard about my test scores. And he's like, oh, like just come over here and we'll give you like a signing bonus and this and that. And yeah, that's how they got me.
Nice. And what was your initial basic training like?
So it was different than most people's. I didn't realize it at the time when I was going through it. So I was one of the last divisions that was all male. So for the entire 2 months that I was first in the military, I didn't realize that there was women in there. I was like, wow, like in all the commercials they show like all these like diverse groups of people, but it wasn't really like that. And it was in Chicago in the middle of winter, and I had never seen snow before. So it was quite a rude awakening for me to be like, you uh, you start off in boot camp, and then they're like, oh, you got to go shovel snow at 4 o'clock in the morning, and your shaved head and everything, like you're just out there. Like I was regretting my decision like a weekend.
And was it a big culture shock kind of being with people from all different backgrounds?
No, that part wasn't. I have always been a friendly person. I loved having friends in all different sorts of places, low places. Yeah, I it wasn't really that culture shock. I was more shocked by what I had anticipated in my mind the military was going to be and what it actually was.
And how long was your basic training?
That was 2 months.
And did you go to a secondary school after that, like a specialist training or something like that?
Yes, so I did 2 years in school.
And what did that consist of?
So the first one was basic electronics, which they teach you basic EE and programming. Then the second is advanced programming. And then my tertiary school was advanced programming for a specific system called the close-in weapon system.
And how much like background did you have with computers and coding before you entered this type of schooling?
So my dad was studying to be was really always into computers. So there was like computers always lying around the house, and so I built my first computer with my dad when I was about 12, like 13, and he taught me how to program, and like I'd read manuals and stuff like that were laying around the house and his college materials. So I was pretty good by the time I was in the military, and it was something that I thought I was going to pursue.
That tertiary additional specialized, was that something that you chose to do, or did they kind of see that it was a good fit for you and kind of invite you to kind of go deeper?
So the way that the school things are for AECF, which is the Advanced Computers and Electronics field, it's kind of a depending on your class rank, they have a list of options for every like class. So like for the first class, I chose to go into that more advanced class, and because I was like second in the class, and then for the second class, I was the first one in the class, so I got to choose to go into that specific system, and that's when I also went to San Diego. I had been in Great Lakes until like a year and a half, and then I moved over to San Diego for about 6 months.
And after that 2 years, did you have like an initial assignment or deployment?
I did. So you get assigned to a ship after your last school, and was assigned to the USS Charlotte, CG-67.
And what was your responsibility on that ship?
I was going in as a tech member for their close-in weapon system. So as a technician for the system that I had just finished studying.
And what was this ship doing, and where was it stationed?
So we were stationed out of Yokosuka, Japan, and we were the ballistic missile defense for the South China or China, the Sea of Korea, and we also did freedom of navigation through the South China Sea.
And can you like go more in depth on, I guess, what those terms, I guess, entail?
So back in, I mean, I don't know how old you are, Charlie, but
I'm 18.
okay, so this was a little bit, you were really young when this happened, or not really young, but back in like 2014, there was a lot of activity in the Korean Peninsula. There was a lot of testing that was going on, and we were the ones that were tasked to shoot, like not only we got the surveillance, we did the radar pings and the satellite imagery of all the rockets that were being shot out of North Korea. And we were also tasked with shooting them down in case like anything got too far or like the real deal was shown off.
And how often were they firing these missiles?
So I mean, there was a period, you could hear it on the news, like it was like almost like every other week, it felt like. But well, I did see like six missiles being thrown. So missile tests, they call them.
And was it I guess, crazy, like seeing your actual job like being described on like national news back
Yeah.
home?
Yeah, it's funny because the images that like CNN and like the major news networks got were from my ship. Like we're the ones that captured those images.
Wow. And did you guys have like a lot of intel on like whether a missile is being tested for practice or, if it was meant to come and destroy something?
So we have different channels of information. We knew when some things were going to be shut off. There were some surprises, but we have an entire department on the ship that's dedicated to the intelligence side, and so I didn't deal too much with that. I had friends that did, and I knew some stuff, but yeah, like it wasn't my area of expertise.
And so how did your role in computer science come into play with the missiles?
So my system engages when they're at close range. So in case they targeted the ship, which they knew where we were, it's a pretty massive ship. Like if they were just to decide to fire anything upon us, then I would be the last line of defense, like to save the ship. Because we have it's almost like a Gatling gun. It's a Vulcan cannon with 6 barrels, and its primary thing is to shoot down incoming missiles and projectiles at close quarters. And it's pretty much like if I'm shooting at it, it's imminently going to hit us, but I'm trying to break it up as much as possible so it doesn't sink the ship.
And can you talk a little bit about kind of just the dynamic on your team? How many people were you typically working shoulder to shoulder with? And, maybe any even just like the human elements around trust or camaraderie or anything that you got to add to the color of kind of that very high intensity situation?
Yeah. So I worked with a lot of different people. I started off my first year on the ship. I was a real go-getter. I definitely made a splash on the ship because I came in and did all my my qualifications extremely fast. So my team, which consisted of my work center supervisor, she became a really like one of my first mentors there, and somebody that looked after me. And also the other people that worked in the shop. I mean, I'm still friends with them today. They were really welcoming. They saw how much like benefit I brought to the group. They understood my dynamic really really well. I like to have fun. I like to get work done, and so it was really easy to meld into it for the most part. For my division as a general, I met my chief. His name is Chief Wright, and we were in a weird place where we had multiple supervisors because 2 people had just made rank, and they hadn't had time to like go anywhere else. So yeah, my main chief, he became really like a really inspirational person for me. He stood up to his guys a lot, and he always had our back. And yeah, the story gets a little complicated.
When you're coming straight out of like these technical schools, is it normal to be put in a high intensity situation like that?
No, not necessarily. I know other people that were in my class that got assigned to like San Diego and Norfolk, and like they did, they were on base for a couple of things. But we were forward deployed, so my deployments wasn't the same as traditional Navy deployments. Traditionally, how it's set up, like you're stationed on a base, usually San Diego, Hawaii, or Norfolk, and you go out for 9 months, and then you come back, and then you're in port for like 2 years. And so you do like usually 2 rotations, and then you're done. I was forward deployed in Japan. So that means I would go out for 3 weeks, come back for 3 days, go out for 2 months, come back for a week, go out for like another 9 months, come back for 2 days, go back. Like it was like my schedule was like literally all over the place. And I believe that the longest stretch that we were at sea without seeing land was like 60 something days, which was a record. We were like the first ship in that operating that we got an actual beer day. And you get beer days after, I want to say it's 55 days of no land.
What was kind of life away from the job on the ship? What did you like to do in your free time? How was the food, stuff like that?
It was interesting. We would find ways to occupy ourselves. We would play cards, play video games, chat with each other argue about life and the meaning and religion. And I mean, if you imagine just a small group of people that are forced to live together and work together 24/7, you kind of like have your really good moments, and you also have like really bad moments when you just want everybody to like get the hell away from me. So yeah, I mean, for the most part, everybody was really nice, and we had really positive experiences. I'm sure you can imagine that we had our disagreements and our arguments, and sometimes like people didn't see eye to eye, but at the end of the day, I think we all knew that we had each other's back.
Nice. And did you ever get a chance to go to shore when you were overseas?
Yes, so I lived in Japan, like in Yokosuka, Japan. So when I was ever like in town, like I actually had a house out in town, and that was about 45 minutes from Tokyo. So we take the train and go up there. And I had friends that were stationed on the base, and yeah, it was pretty dynamic.
What was your experience in Tokyo like? Or I guess in Japan as a whole?
It was great. It's definitely a very beautiful country. I got to see a lot of things that I don't think I would have ever gotten to see. To this day, it's just one of the most amazing places. It's really clean. It's really safe. It's fun. People, this was like, especially pre-COVID, like, it was kind of different from me being from Texas, being like around so much area to going somewhere and being like just so close to people. And that was kind of a shock, but in a good way. It got me out of my comfort zone.
And did you feel like a sense of respect being that you're in the United States military and you're in like a foreign country, or was there ever a sense of like you're an outsider coming in and maybe not a sense of welcoming there?
Japan has a really strict culture, and it is sort of closed towards foreigners. I mean, if you've read any history, you can kind of understand why. So there wasn't. They like us with a measure of respect, but they want to keep certain things like out of our reach. So there's spaces that you can't enter. There's places where they restrict you with but it's a more of like a respect thing for their own culture than anything, I think, negative. I think that they understand we're valuable partners, but unfortunately there has been a lot of incidents with each country.
I guess moving back to sort of the job, was there ever any like close calls or like high pressure moments when you're on the ship, or was it mainly maintenance, like watching the missiles and making sure?
How long do you have? Well, there was definitely a lot of really high stress moments and incidents. A lot of them came to mind as soon as you said that. I think to highlight some of the scariest we had, we had a missile test, and this was actually on the Pearl. This wasn't on the Shiloh. I should just stick with the Shiloh for right now. We were doing a Tiger cruise, which is when families are able to come aboard, and it's only like for 2 days, and it's supposed to be pretty smooth. But the captain wanted us to shoot like our guns to like demonstrate, and we were having a problem with one of the radars on a specific mount, and we told him like, hey, like we shouldn't fire off of this one. Captain wanted it to happen, so we ended up firing from it, and it accidentally tracked in the wrong way, and then it like the gun started like was shooting, and it started turning towards the inbound of the ship. And it was a training session. And by that time, I was already the work center supervisor of the shop. So this was about 2 years into my deployment with them. And so I had to grab the guy that was on the seat, like throw him off and like get back in there, like shut the machine down before like anybody got hurt. And I actually got a letter of commendation for that.
My gosh.
So
And did the family members have any idea that this happened? Do you think they still know that how close it was?
no, we were. I think it was just better that they thought that we were just waving the gun around.
Oh my God. And what about the poor guy that got thrown to the ground? Was he still relieved that you took over? Or
Oh yeah, because he went white in the face when it started drifting, and he's like, what do I do? And he wasn't doing like the command signal, like he wasn't doing anything. I mean, I don't blame him. He freaked out. And so I had more experience, and so I was responsible for him. So yeah.
Wow. And how long were you on this ship for?
That ship I was on for 3 years.
And did you have another assignment after that?
Yes, I went to the Pearl Harbor.
Okay.
And it was the USS Pearl Harbor, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Can you tell us
And where was that stationed?
That was in San Diego, but that was a much smaller part of my career. Some pretty intense stuff happened on Shiloh after I guess, yeah. So I was forced to go to the Pearl. I didn't want to, but I was forced to go to.
Can you tell us a little bit about that and just the overall kind of trajectory of the Shiloh experience?
Yeah, so my first year and a half on Shiloh were really great. Like I said, I got to meet amazing people, and I think I really had a positive Navy experience. I got to go to a lot of ports, and then the second year, I was in a really good place. I was the youngest work center supervisor on my ship. I was like noted as the weapon system expert, so I advised directly to the captain about like the weapon system. And there was a new captain that came on board at a turnover, and he was a very zealous person, and he changed things like almost immediately. And that's when I had started having like a bad Navy experience. He was probably one of the worst leaders that I've ever like stumbled upon. He was very focused on his career, and he did a lot of things that were against the best interests of the crew, in terms of like self-interest, to forward himself. And the things ranged from like taking a chief to mast, which is something really crazy to do, and then stripping him of all his insignias. Who was a friend of mine. He put people on bread and water. So there's this really, it's because of our ship that it actually got taken out of the UCMJ. But the captain was allowed to, if you were E3 or below, to put you in the brig, in jail, basically, and have you on 3 days of nothing but bread and water. So he started using that as punishment, and in order to like maximize the time that you did that, we would have what he called midnight mast. So he would have the ceremony at midnight, so that when it hit 12, the MAs or the police would come and escort him to the brig on base and process him. And the very first one was from my division. Then when he did that, he took a lot of people to judicial, non-judicial, and judicial punishment for things like cleaning without like having like gloves if he didn't like you. He kicked my best friend off the ship because he complained that we didn't have any standing battle orders before we deployed, which is a huge no-no. So he brought that up, and so since he didn't do anything technically wrong, he just got rid of him. He was just like, hey, like, get rid of him. And so it was a lot of incidents like that. I know at the time my great grandma passed away, and I really wanted to be with my family because she was very important to my overall family. They sent out like a Red Cross message and everything, and the captain he's like no, like I don't want to lose anybody on this, and even though like that my like chiefs and everybody pleaded for me, like it just wasn't happening because I had to ask so many questions, and I kind of had a target on my back, and that's what kind of ended up like, because when I did mess up for real, that's what he had the ammunition to really tear me down.
Oh, what a horrible working environment. Sounds like no one was spared of his.
No, this is the same ship that we were known as the USS Bread and Water by everybody on board, because they know how many people were getting taken to the brig, and he also made it so that if you complained about any like mental health issues, or like were saying like that you were having anything intense, you were secured on the ship, so you couldn't leave the ship. And you couldn't go on leave, you couldn't do anything like that. He also, like, we would stay out underway, like way past longer when like our rations would be depleted, and so like we would go on half and quarter ration. And we also would. He demanded that we stand watch 24 hours. There was only 3 sentries on my station on that could do my station, and we only had 3 technicians. So we were like, hey, like, when are we supposed to? And they told us just to like figure it out. So whenever we would be like patrolling like in those waters, we would literally be on watch on 8-hour rotations. And then like, even though we weren't supposed to kind of like sleep, like take turns sleeping at one of the stations, and like having somebody like come and check in on you.
For everyone on the ship, just, I mean, no one's going to be able to do their job with that sleep and nourishment and stress.
And we complained a lot through the command climate surveys, and they were suppressed by the admiral. And then this is, I guess, a little bit further. The case wasn't discovered until I had already left. After there was a sailor that was hiding in an engine room while they were deployed, and I thought that he had gone overboard. And he's a personal friend of mine too. His name was Peter Mims, but he hid it for a week in like the belly and everybody presumed that he was actually dead and like thrown overboard. And the United States and Japan launched huge like search and rescue missions, and it was all over the news. And and the reason why he had been like this is because he was one of the people that he was going through a lot of stuff back home, and the captain like said that he was a mental health risk. So instead of like giving him time to like go take care of his stuff at home, like I think he was like getting divorced or something, and like he couldn't like get everything fixed, like the captain ordered him to stay on the ship, and even when we were in port, like he wasn't allowed to leave. And so they found him just by accident, and by the time they found it, he was I think he had like a bucket, some Gatorade, and some Peeps in one of the bilges of the ship. So there's
Wow.
there's that.
And did you ever find out what happened to him, and whether or not, it was able to come command?
No, so he actually went through without anything like any formal charges. The thing is, the captain was very smart. He was a very smart guy. He would always consult with JAGs or uh, naval lawyers, like Navy lawyers, to make sure that everything that he did was within the book. And when it comes to what actually happened to me, that's how he got me, because he didn't technically have anything that he could really throw at me. Um, so he had to kind of like shift the rules a little bit. Um, but he did it in a way where I couldn't legally argue uh,
Mhm.
for myself. So yeah, I think that um, I'm honestly not sure what happened to him afterwards. I know that he went on to a different command, but I don't think he went to go like command, like actually be in charge of anything else.
Oh, it's heartbreaking.
So sorry. You said that you were forced to go to Hawaii. Why?
No,
Why was it not?
the USS Pearl Harbor is actually stationed in San Diego, so I was forced to go to San
Oh,
Diego.
sorry. I was confused with Pearl Harbor in Hawaii. Why were you forced to go to San Diego?
So this was my last year, uh, and at the time, I had just gotten married, and with like my high school sweetheart, and I had she had told me she was pregnant, and we ended up losing the child like 3 months later while I was deployed. So I wasn't given an opportunity to like go and be with her during that time. And I I didn't handle it well. I was not the most prudent with my choices at the time. So we flung into like I my brain was just like all over the place, and I wasn't really thinking. So we pulled into a port in the Philippines, and um, I didn't go through the checklist as thoroughly as I needed to unload the weapon. And you can't pull into port without the weapon being fully unloaded. It's an actual war. And so when we were taking down the rounds, which is a complicated process, all of a sudden like I heard this like slam, and the gun jammed, and it jammed hard because I had forgot to put a certain mechanism onto the gun that was required according to the safety things. And it's very outside. People definitely notice, and like there's a lot of like things that I couldn't prevent. So the captain kept on asking why, like why isn't the gun down? Why isn't the gun down? So me and the other technicians, we were scrambling to find a way. Thankfully, like we had gotten it, but he launched an investigation, and he found that I had been negligent with the procedures. So I went up to what we call the Chiefs board, and like the Chiefs understood they knew me, they knew my situation, but they still had to like reprimand me for everything. And then I was scheduled to go see the XO, and so I was pretty distressed at that time. And something that I didn't mention in earlier about my 2 years of school. Um, I had a classmate who killed himself, and that was right around the anniversary. And there was a lot of like I guess undeveloped trauma. So I was really going through as well. I um, I guess what I'm trying to say. And so I went to port. They still, because I had not received um, my actual punishment yet, I was still free to go ashore. And so I took the time I went to a hotel that was directly across the street from the base, and I literally just spent the time talking to my wife on FaceTime, and I was there for like 2 days. And the last day that we were there, I ended up calling the quarterdeck, and asking them like, "Hey, what time are we supposed to be back?" And the person at the quarterdeck told me like 6 o'clock, and I was with another guy from my division, and I told him like, hey, like 6 o'clock, we just walk across the street, everything's fine, like, and we just go. And so we get to the ship at like 5:45, which is 15 minutes early, which is fine. And then everybody starts like coming and yelling and like being like, we almost left you guys. Where the hell were you? Like we were trying to reach you. And I was really confused by this. And so they escorted us to the MA, which is like the police on board. They start taking down our statements, and I was like, hey, like, I think somebody just made like an error. They told us the wrong time. Like if you check the call logs, I'm sure that our number is in there.
Yeah.
And so they were like, okay, yeah, we'll get a ticket and look at, but we still need you to make a report and like take a drug test and make sure that you guys aren't like drinking and like. And I was like, why are we being treated like we did something wrong? Like it's simple miscommunication, and like we're still on the ship. And so then I got taken to chief's mess again. And what happened was they had the call log. They had the person on the quarterdeck, but the person on the quarterdeck says he didn't remember doing that. He didn't remember saying anything. And later on, I found out that he didn't want to get in trouble for giving the wrong information out, which, I mean, like, that would have been minimal, but he was just that type of person. And so I went directly to XO, and the XO was brand new to the ship. And he's like, hey, like, I'm really sorry about this. I don't know anything about your case. Like, I'm going to just send you up to captain's mast. And so I had to go directly in front of the captain. And I explained to him, even though like him and I had gotten off on the, like, we were not, there was no relationship there. He said that even though the person I was with was of higher rank and older than me, that I was the quote unquote ringleader, and that he let the other person go without anything. And he gave me 45 days of extra duty. But there was not much he could do because the day before my actual case, I had gone and talked to a JAG, and then he's like, this is not really a case that needs to be like prosecuted because you have evidence. And so my plan going into the actual mast was kicking it up to an admiral's mast, which is a judicial punishment, which like everybody gets involved and he gets taken with me. So by dismissing it at my level, he didn't allow me to do that. But he did end up removing, taking away a contract that I had signed that said that I wanted to be extended on board. And the reason why I decided I wanted to be extended on board was because I felt really responsible for my work center. And the people that depended on me, I was their leader. I didn't want anything bad to happen to them. And I didn't want them to like face this on their own. And so like I had stuck around because of that, even though I had family and like everything back home. It was more important to me that, these guys, that I had developed such a great bond, that I made sure that I'm there. And I was a good bulwark against like anything that came their way, and just trying to make life a little bit easier for them. So he ended up taking that contract away, and because it wasn't on the official on the official statement, it says that I got like the minimum whatever. Since I couldn't fight it, then I couldn't take it up, and I couldn't get that removed. And so he knew how much like that was, and it didn't actually work, which is the like the final straw when he was really like losing it. And I found out a little bit later that in order to get rid of me, he actually had to cut the billet, which means that usually there's a certain amount of spots on the ship for a certain job, and that's dependent on, and it doesn't really change from ship to ship, because you need that many people, and that's a lot of work for that many people already. So what he said was basically, he told the Navy, like, I don't need that person at all. So you don't have to send a replacement, just get rid of the billet. And so like, and yeah, to this day, they're one of the ships that has one last technician, because he was just like that desperate to get rid of me.
Oh gosh.
Wow.
Yeah, and I mean, like my story wasn't unique. My chief, the one that I mentioned in the beginning, was he was kicked off the ship in a similar fashion because he stood up for us. Unfortunately, he had an incident where he got physical with like an officer that was really close to the captain, but and he basically got his uh, like everything like busted down, except you can't take out chief sanctions away. So he got sent over to San Diego, and I saw him a couple of times. Um, Unfortunately, he killed himself 2 years ago, but he wasn't really able ever to recover from that. And um, yeah, like a lot more people were hurt by what happened during those years and on the Shiloh, and I've honestly lost count of how many shipmates have killed themselves.
Oh my God. I just can't imagine him staying in power with so much evidence.
Yeah.
Well, it's important sparring to be told. Did you have a chance to say goodbye to your friends?
Yes. The process to moving out was slow moving, but definitely kind of warped my perception of what the Navy really was like, especially like the differentiation between officers and enlisted, especially on that ship. It was really toxic. And so when I showed up to the Pearl, it was completely different. People were much more relaxed. People were like joking around, and like they hadn't gone through anything like that, and they were going through what I would categorize as a usual Navy experience, like very much like it was in my first year there. And they were having fun, and I didn't really fit in anymore because I was more worried about things that were going on in Japan, and um, like I was kind of looked down on because I was like shoved into the ship, even though like a lot of them knew what was happening, but I was very closed off, especially from like when it came to like officers. So it was really weird. Like the very first time, the my new officer asked us to go to Chili's, and I'm like, you guys are allowed to do that? I thought we couldn't thought you couldn't even like look at them like in the eye.
Yeah.
Like so it was really weird. And yeah, and then eventually I was having so many issues like adapting that they sent me to the hospital. I got really sick when I get back from Japan, and I was diagnosed with some things due to the prolonged and intense stress that I got on the Shiloh. And yeah, it took me a little while to recover, so I was at the Naval Hospital for a little bit.
Do you want to talk about when you exited the military and what that was like for you?
So I exited out of San Diego. So I did a LIMDU tour, which was like 6 months of limited duty. I worked at the um, substance recovery wing of the Naval Hospital down there, and it was pretty uneventful. I started going to school. I by that time I had really like even before any of this happened, I had really missed school, and I was like, damn, should have gone to should have gone to college. um, and then I started going to school, so I was happy about that. And I went to community college down in San Diego. My dream was to go to Stanford, and so I started working towards that again. And yeah, like really like trying just to pick up the pieces of my life. So it was good times. I got to make some new friendships in some of like we called ourselves like the island of broken toys, and um and just it was just great hearing like some other stories. And I met because of they were counselors that were mostly on staff. They were really nice and taught me like a lot of things about how to like take care of myself, and really supported me in my journey. They're like, you're really smart. Don't let these experiences define you. Just go out there and like, if you want to go to Stanford, you can get into Stanford. And I was like, all right.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about what you're doing today and if you're still involved in with the military at all?
Yeah. So as I kind of said, I got to Stanford in 2021. So the time before that, well, immediately after the military, I got a job in Fremont, which is here in the Bay Area, and working for a controls company. And the only reason I took a job here was because I wanted to go to Stanford. Everyone was calling me crazy. He's like, you don't know anyone in SF, so like, why are you going up there? My mom was the one that was like beating my door down, like, get home now. Like, you've been gone for too long. I was like, no, Mom, I'm gonna follow my dreams. So I ended up, enrolling in community college up here and working full time and trying really hard. And I applied to Stanford in 2020, and I got denied, which was a real kick in the pants after like building myself up for a really long time. So I was pretty low for about 3 months, and then I was using this program called Service to School, and the president of it actually was my mentor, and he was like, and I was like, well, like, do you know anybody that's like applied again and gotten in? And he's like, honestly, like, no.
Yeah.
But if there's anybody that I could see doing it, it would be you. And he's like, you're just got to change some things. And I'm like, you know what? Like, I've already made it this far. Like, what's another year? And so I decided to stay here. And we saw that the biggest problem in my application was that I wasn't a full-time student. And so I decided to quit my job and pursue being a full-time student. I became a senator for my community college to advocate for veterans. I started the SBA with them, like a little center for veterans. I also this was when COVID started hitting, so like we made a scholarship for like relief for like students of low income, things like that. And I was just very much active in the community. I'm like, I'm not working, and I'm literally like eating through my savings as fast as I can because living out here is super expensive. And so like, like sleep in my car, eating ramen, like just like real.
And were you alone, Alex? Were you alone up here when you were
sometimes, yeah.
Yeah. And what was the kind of gateway community college that was? Did you stay at the same community college when you decided full time?
Yeah, it was it's called Ohlone College. It's in Fremont. And so and I applied a year later with all these things that I had accumulated, and thank God that I got in. I think I'll always remember the day that I got in. It was a very emotional moment for me.
Yeah, can you tell us about that?
So I had gotten into NYU and into Cornell. So I was like, okay, like even if Stanford doesn't happen, like I got into some pretty good backup schools. Not to sound like, because those are like not really backup schools, but so I remember I had just come from an event for my community college, and I saw the email pop up on my phone, and I was like, okay, I'm not gonna like start like being pissed off here in the middle of this event, so I excused myself. I drove to the very top of a parking lot where I was like, no one's gonna see me, and I just like stared at the like click here to open for like 30 minutes. I was just like, this is like the moment before I have to like, can I remember what it was like to tell my professors that I didn't get in, to tell my mom I had failed, to tell everybody that had like told forever that I was just trying to go to Stanford. And I just remember all of them being like, oh, like, oh, that sucks, but come back now. Like that was never going to happen. And so I was like, I'm going to have to do that again. Like I was really psyching myself out. I was actually already thinking of the next like plan. I was like, you know what? If I go to the school, if I stand outside with a sign and saying like, let me in, like there's no way that they can't say no. Like I was like cooking up like crazy things. And then finally I clicked it and I didn't even read it. I just saw the confetti and then just like tears. Like I was like, I crossed two oceans and went through hell for this. Like this is, yeah, it was very worth it.
So happy. And was that for undergraduate admissions or was that graduate? Yeah, undergrad. Yeah. And so what are you majoring in?
Right now, economics. I came in as CS, and then I have a really great counselor who was like, you're here, like just take some courses, like here, like just explore and like, and I had always had an interest in finance. I had actually like started like investing when I was at Starbucks from one of my customers. He taught me how to invest from like reading like a newspaper, and then I was like, I've always found this interesting, so I took a finance and accounting course, and it just clicked so much more than the CS like track, and I switched over to econ with the specialization in finance, and I work in private equity.
Yeah. So Charlie, I don't know if you know this, but he works for an amazing private equity firm. Charlie's dad and I are both in the industry, and I know my husband has done deals with your firm, so like it's an amazing platform you're on. I'm so happy for you. I'm so happy.
It's really great. I got the internship because I restarted a fraternity at Stanford that was aimed for like veterans, and well, I wanted to make it more inclusive like to veterans and stuff, and I also wanted to get one of those nice houses.
Did you get the house?
We're in the process of doing that, but I was the president of Sigma Chi for this last school year, and he, my boss right now, his name's Adam Fuller. He was a Sigma Chi, and so he came back to Palo Alto to open up like a satellite office of SageMount here. And we met during a mixer, and then I was like, I'm into finance. He liked my vibe, like I liked his vibe, and we've been working since November, and we're restarting this this office from the ground up and Sigma Chi. So it's
wow. So your intern is also so you're a working student now too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Awesome. Well, it's so hard to get into private equity, especially from undergrad. Like that doesn't happen. I mean,
yeah,
you know that you're like doing the impossible, right?
That's what they keep telling me, and I feel like I'm still not doing enough.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for your service. And I know it probably was not easy going through those hard times, but we really appreciate it.
Yeah. And I was actually just gonna ask one other question. I hope you don't mind, Charlie. But Alex, one area I can't remember if I told you this on the phone, but so Charlie and I traveled to DC, and we actually met with the head librarian of the Library of Congress. Mm-hmm. And one of the things, this was a year ago, we were actually on a college tour for Charlie, looking at Georgetown and UVA. And when we were out there, we had told them about all of the kind of veterans that we had met. And then Charlie asked, hey, like if you wanted us to spend time looking at specific kind of cohorts of veterans or specific experiences, where would that be? Because I mean, we're volunteering our time, like we want to be helpful and fill in gaps. And they actually said that one of the biggest gaps that they have in the national collection is around underrepresented voices. And the reason I bring that up is I think you're one of the few veterans that we've met who's been born outside the U.S. And so we'd love to get your perspective on that and kind of just to give you some perspective on where we're going with this. So like, for example, we have tried to spend our time reaching out to people like Tina, who is a woman in the military. We've actually had a great interview, for example, with a vet who's gay. He served during Don't Ask, Don't Tell. And so I'm wondering if there's anything that you could share just around kind of being born outside the U.S. or any other, aspect to your heritage that would be interesting kind of for filling that gap around what it's like to be in your shoes.
So for the most part, I think that having been in a situation when I was really young, to be in a different culture, to being kind of perceived as an outsider, to learn, to not know language, to really just be like a fish out of water. Actually made me more adaptable, and it actually made me better at uh, adapting to the military, and going to countries and being. I think I would say for the most part, I was more open to having a lot more experiences. I was open to talking to a lot more people. Like even if we don't speak the same language, I'm a lot more comfortable like trying to get people to understand. It develops your patience. It develops your communication skills, and it kind of forces you to be out of that bubble. Also, being like an immigrant family, we moved around a lot, so I was always like the new kid, and so that also like you either become a loner or you have to learn how to make friends quick. And so I feel like I can do both pretty easily. Like I've made a lot of friends, but if also like there's just moments in life where I am alone and I can be alone and it not like take down the value of my life. So I think overall like it was a good experience beforehand, not going through it. But definitely in the long run, I think it made me the person that I am today.
That's great. Well, thank you. I don't think I have any other questions. Do you, Charlie?
No. If we missed anything, feel free to share, but that's all we have. So
Yeah, no, I think that pretty much covers it. I didn't go into too many nitty-gritty details, but yeah, it was a good. It was I categorize it as the best worst decision I ever made.
Well, now that we know that you are starting a fraternity for veterans, we're hoping that you'll think of us if you know of any other folks kind of that you spend a lot of time with that might want to be part of this program. We would love to meet any of your classmates or anyone else.
Sure, I have the information for a couple of guys that are like ex-SEALs and things like that are here, and also I work with Honor Flight. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. It's a volunteer organization just like you. I do their audio and visual work, their CS things, and they take veterans from the wars, so World War II, Korea, and Vietnam, to the memorials in Washington. And so I actually got to go with them and met a bunch of like veterans from those wars, and be with them when they went to go visit their thing. And they have events every couple of months, and they restarted after COVID, and now they're doing flights out. And yeah, if you guys want to meet like some veterans from those wars, I'd be happy to do it.
Is the audio flight is that a Bay Area organization or yeah? Okay,
it's a national organization, but they have a Bay Area branch, and I'm personal friends with the president and his wife, and they call me on whenever they need an extra.
Great.
And
well, one thing that we didn't know, I don't think I sent it to you just because we first met on LinkedIn, but we do have a little bit of a flyer which just is easy to like forward out, or I'll send it to you just in the off chance that you kind of like need something to point to with our contact information and just explain the connection to the Library of Congress. So
okay, perfect. Yeah, I could definitely do that.
Good. Congratulations. I mean, hardest school in the country to get into.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, can't wait to see what you do with your degree. Congratulations.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you for taking the time, guys.